Let's focus on another top story this morning, and that's the impact of the recent rains that we've seen. We want to know how it is impacting the integrated Vaal River system. Well, to help us discuss that, we're joined by the Department of Water Affairs spokesperson, Sputnik Ratau. Sputnik, good morning. Thank you very much for coming in. Before we look at the impact on the Vaal River and the integrated Vaal River system, we're running a story this morning about a warning to those people who are residing close to dams like the Vaal Dam and the Bloemhof Dam, that we are expecting flooding in those areas, and that people have been advised to be careful and maybe move away from those areas if they are close enough. Because this weekend, for instance, Bloemhof might be sitting at 100%, and we know that as of yesterday, the Vaal Dam was just above 81%. What's the latest word from what you're hearing on the ground? Is that warning still in place for those people who live in and around those two dams?
Thanks for having us. That warning is still in place, but we will keep on updating it, on a daily basis. But what we are saying, and due to the observations that we are making, for instance, when you talk about the Vaal Dam being at 81.6% yesterday, as of this morning at 6 o'clock, it was already at about 88.48. So that rise is still happening. But what we are observing as well is that the tributaries have started slowing down. So the inflow is slowing down. We may not see 100% at the Vaal Dam on Sunday, but Bloemhof, definitely we believe that it will be on 100% by tomorrow. And therefore, what we have to do in order to be able to protect the infrastructure and to make sure that it keeps on working as it should, we are going to need to open some sluice gates. We are planning, as of yesterday, we were talking about opening 2 sluice gates at the Vaal on Sunday and about 8 in Bloemhof. That would obviously mean that there would be a lot of outflow that was not planned for initially, but we are obviously reacting to the rains that we are having. That would lead obviously to water flowing closer to Douglas. And Douglas, you find the confluence of both the Orange and the Vaal. And normally that is where we would see most of the highest levels of water.
Douglas?
Douglas, yeah.
Okay, whereabouts is Douglas?
It's in the Northern Cape.
In the Northern Cape,
yeah.
And that's where people must really take care.
Yes, but also along, the flow of the Vaal and the Orange
towards Douglas.
Towards Douglas.
So, but you'll be updating people regularly. So you're alleviating the pressure on Bloemhof Dam, 8 sluice gates, and then 2 at the Vaal, just to make sure that the pressure is kept at a manageable level. Absolutely,
yeah. That's what we have to do.
Okay, well, in a way, I mean, it's like good news, because we've been saying there's no water, parts of the country have been dry, but now we've got so much water that we need to alleviate pressure. So the question does come, it's human nature. Are we out of the woods in those parts of the countries that are served by the integrated Vaal Dam system? Are we out of the woods yet?
We can look at it that way, to say yes, I think we have received more than what we had expected towards the end of last year. But what we are saying is that we must also be cautious, because we are going towards the dry winter season. And therefore, good news that we've got so much water at the moment, but we need to conserve going towards the winter season so that we can be able to pass that and go into the next rainy summer season still with water to spare.
Okay, nationally, the integrated Vaal River system looks like we're out of the woods. Other places, I mean, the Western Cape, it's dry. The situation there looks very dire. Just broadly, other parts of the country, I mean, there was a lot of cry from KwaZulu-Natal some months ago that, even there was some localized interventions that your department had to put into place in terms of the farmers there, irrigation, and other parts of the country. Just a picture for us elsewhere in the country. What is the picture looking like? Because most of northeastern South Africa in the last couple of weeks has been receiving good rains.
In general, when you look at the larger part of South Africa, I think we have received a bit of relief. Even in KZN, even though we are not completely out of it, but at least you know, we even having to give warnings around the Tugela because we've seen a lot of water there as well, and some of the weirs have also spilled along the Tugela. So you have some areas that have done very well and others not. When you look at the northwest, for instance, most of the dams are at about 100 or over. It's still Mulatedi and the other one on Klein Mariko as well that are still below 50%. But in general, we are seeing an increase in terms of dam levels. The Western Cape, yes, a very great concern. Basically because they are declining at more than 2%, which is a bit more concerning than the normal decline of about 1%, which is acceptable. But obviously because they are a winter rainfall season area, we're hoping that we can get into better rainfall than we received last year, because last year we didn't receive such great rains in the winter. So it is that part of our country, together with primarily the southern part of the Northern Cape, around the Karia Dam, which has been registering almost a 0% in terms of availability of water, where we still have concerns about water availability.
So Western Cape is going to really have to pray very hard for a wet winter season, because that's when they get their rain. Okay, finally, you imposed water restrictions last year as a National Department of Water, and that was cascaded down to the municipalities. In January this year, you said that if the water levels, for instance, in the Vaal system would reach around about 70%, by around about this time, you may lift the water restrictions by May. When are you planning to lift the water restrictions? The reason I'm asking very briefly is because when you lift the water restrictions, then hopefully it cascades to municipalities. And remember, there were punitive measures, penalties being imposed by municipalities, not you, by municipalities, to say if we spend above so much, then we'll pay so more. Because there's a long value chain. Mm-hmm. So I'm just asking, when will the Water and Sanitation Department think about removing the water restrictions that you've imposed after these good rains that we've just seen recently?
The review of water restrictions still remains for May according to the hydrological cycle. But obviously, because of the impact of the high water levels that we have seen now, a discussion could be had as to whether in certain areas where we have seen very good levels, do we go a bit earlier in terms of that review? But it's a discussion that must still be had together with the technocrats, obviously informing the DG, the minister, and a decision can be taken at some point. But yes, it's something that we continue to look at, and based on what the realities are on a day-to-day basis, ultimately on a weekly and monthly basis, with that kind of thinking does come into play.
Okay, but the May is still like your target date.
May is still the target.
But discussions can be had. But in the interim, we must bear in mind we're heading towards the winter season, which for a larger part of the country is a dry season. So we must still save water.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. That's the Department of Water Affairs spokesperson, Sputnik Ratau.